Yo, what's good YouTube? Anubis Black here, back again to start up another game review series. As some of you already know, I have been playing through the Nicktoons crossover games on handheld systems recently, and since I already reviewed all four of these games from their PS2 counterparts, I figured I should go ahead and talk in depth about these too, as there are many gameplay and story differences that help set them apart, and sometimes they end up being even better than the console version, which is incredible. So in this series, I will be talking about at least 6 of these Nicktoons crossover games over the course of the next few weeks, and then moving on to something else after that. Also, before we begin, I just want to say that this video series was inspired by one of my favorite YouTubers, LS Mark, who coincidentally put out a video recently about the same topic. So let's see how different or similar our experiences with these games are. Today we start with Nicktoons Unite on Nintendo DS, which came out a few months after the console version on January 10th, 2006. Developed by Climax Action and published by THQ. Right off the bat, you'll notice that just about everything is different here. The cutscenes are basically a static JPEG of the characters talking to each other with no voice dialogue at all, which is quite normal for a DS game, honestly. And this time, instead of that weird elevator music from the PS2, this game has an original soundtrack that was composed by the same guy responsible for SpongeBob Super Sponge, and it's actually pretty decent. There are quite a few catchy tunes in this game that got stuck in my head from time to time. Now, the gameplay has the most apparent changes of them all. Instead of being a 4-player beat-em-up with occasional puzzle and platforming elements, this version of the game is a fully fledged 3D platformer where you take control of one character at a time and switch between them and their unique abilities via the touchscreen. This is an interesting change of pace that works well enough for this hardware. And like I said, each character has a unique ability and basic attack. Well, most of them. You see, Jimmy can shrink enemies and hover with his jetpack. Danny can shoot energy blast, wall jump, and phase through solid objects. SpongeBob can shoot bubbles, float upwards with a giant bubble, and glide with his underpants. And lastly, Timmy cannot attack whatsoever for some strange reason. However, he can sprint and stop time for a few seconds, and he can also disguise himself as a bush. Okay, that's kinda random. Timmy is definitely the most situational character in the game because his special moves are only used during the very few stealth sections and one of the boss battles. Of course, I prefer the gameplay style of the original console version over this, but at least it tried to do something a little bit different, so here's a gold star for effort, I guess. This title also includes mini games that you must overcome to progress with each level, and for the most part, they're kinda okay, nothing really spectacular. But sometimes they can be downright infuriating to get through, especially when you have to play the game with a fucking mouse and keyboard instead of the stylus pen as intended. But I guess that's what I get for emulating it. But yeah, they're just okay for the most part. I wouldn't call them fun exactly, but not really that intrusive, at least until you get to Fairy World. Now, I will say that unlike the console version, you can actually explore some areas within Dimsdale and Retroville this time, and it was actually pretty cool to be able to walk around Jimmy's house and the Retroland amusement park for the first time. The structure of each section of the game, similar to the console version, will have you complete 3 levels and then fight a boss battle. And to say about the boss battles in this game, they kinda suck, if I'm being honest. They're all super duper easy to beat really and don't take very long, Well, unless the game decides to fucking glitch out and your attacks stop working, so you have no other choice but to reboot the entire game and start all over. I shit you not, this literally happened to me at least 4 times during the Plankton boss and the final boss against Calamitous, and it was really, really annoying. Okay, now the main story of the game basically ends the same as before. The evil syndicate is defeated and all the heroes return to their own worlds, you know, until the next adventure. There are a few little things that I enjoyed with this version of the game, like the music and the new locations, and, you know, every now and then the gameplay was a little bit interesting and, like I said, just a nice change of pace. But there were also plenty more little things that I didn't like. Some of the minigames are really annoying. The controls and hit detection can be really clunky at times. And of course, let's not forget about the game-breaking boss glitches that occurred a little bit more than I'm comfortable with. But other than that, this game was okay for the most part. I still prefer the console version over it, but at the very least I can say it's much better than the atrocious Game Boy Advance port. I'm not even going to bother talking about that one beyond this sentence. So there you go. Next up on the list, we'll be talking about Nicktoons Battle for Volcano Island on the Game Boy Advance, and not the Nintendo DS version. Because from everything that I've heard and just a little few minutes of the game that I actually played, I'm just not feeling it. You know, maybe I'll mention the DS version a little bit, but other than that, it's gonna mostly focus on the Game Boy Advance version. So yeah, if you want to see that, make sure you stay tuned to the channel, and hey, maybe even subscribe if you're new here. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Alright, bye-bye.